Talk about a news story that came out today. There's so much news going on right now, so that there's really, it's quite surprising. However, there was one story that has really hit the Jewish community very strongly, and that is this story of the arrest of a 19-year-old Israeli boy who also has dual American citizenship, in making over 100 threats to JCCs across America and actually across the world. Now, a lot of people are shocked, dismayed by this. I am not surprised by this. In fact, I might have even been on record on Facebook as writing, predicting this, that it would be an Israeli behind these things. Now, a lot of people felt, and a lot of the effect of this, of these, hoaxes, have been that, people have been blaming our president, who was actually probably one of the most pro-Jewish presidents ever in history. Not that we've had too many anti-Jewish presidents, but certainly one of the most positive, certainly having some of the closest connections to Orthodox Judaism. You can't, there's really no comparison to. That his own daughter is an Orthodox Jewish woman. Son-in-law and his other sons-in-law are also Jewish. His other daughters-in-law, his daughters-in-law are also Jewish. All of his daughters-in-laws, all of his grandchildren are Jewish. So, it's quite an incredible thing. And to accuse a man like this of anti-Semitism when he's really, like he said, the least anti-Semitic person you've ever met, it's really true. But that's beside the point, because this is really a secondary thing in this. What I've seen time and time again on Facebook and other social media and other websites is frightening things of how certain elements wouldn't let a good tragedy go to waste. And they're into this fear-mongering to try to scare Jews away from living in the countries where we've lived for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, and to resettle in the Holy Land, even though it's very clear in the Talmud and in the Bible that we're supposed to wait for the Messiah to come and not settle in the Holy Land. And if people want to settle in the Holy Land, they should do so in a peaceful way, as a religious devotion, and not as a political, with no political motivations. And that was, the small Jewish community that always was in the Holy Land were always purely non-political and lived in peace with their non-Jewish neighbors, as we're commanded to, because we're in exile. And in any way, we're always supposed to seek out peace. And of course, also in the other countries, we see Jeremiah, it says, "Seek out the peace of the city where I've sent you, the country where I've sent you, because your peace depends on their peace." You could translate as your well-being depends on their well-being. And so there's this communal responsibility that we feel that we are Americans first and foremost. That's how or whatever country we're living in. The Torah commands us, the Bible commands us, the Talmud commands us, that's the attitude we're supposed to take, is to be loyal citizens wherever we live, and to wait patiently for the Messiah to come, and not to be too embroiled in messianic fervor to the point where we lose our head. And, throughout history, there have been false messiahs that have really brought horrible destruction to the Jewish community, particularly Shabtai Tzvi in the 1600s. From Izmir, Turkey, was the false messiah Shabtai Tzvi, and he misled a lot of people to think he was the Messiah. His teachings were totally heretical, a total twisting, a hijacking of Judaism, rather disgusting teachings. They were continued in an even more disgusting way with the Frankist movement. And these movements still maintained adherence all throughout history. Even, I would say, in a latent form to this day, even unawares, the seeds that these movements sowed are unfortunately still being reaped in much of the Jewish community to today. And this is well known. Now, that's beside the point. The main thing was that people picked up, moved, left their homes, and then when they came back, they didn't have where to go to because everything was gone, everything was taken, because they just abandoned their homes. They thought the Messiah was here already, and they just, they didn't wait for all the signs that we've been commanded to wait for. And many other horrible things happened because of this. Because he twisted Kabbalah, people started doubting the truth of the Kabbalah, and because many rabbis followed him, a lot of people started losing faith in the rabbis. So, and by losing faith in the rabbis, they eventually came to lose faith in Torah altogether. So it was a horrible, and this led to more and more destruction, more and more of these movements and these pseudo-messianic movements that have brought tremendous destruction to the Jewish people. Now, one of those movements was started in the 1890s by Herzl, and Herzl himself said that part of the job of people who support his movement, his nationalist movement, was to spread anti-Semitism in order. He wrote this himself, Theodor Herzl, Yimach Shemo. How can a Jew write like this? That, to spread anti-Semitism in order to entice more Jews to feel uncomfortable living in the countries where they lived, and that they should come to settle in his Judenstaat that he wanted to make his Jewish state, which is abhorrent. Forget about, if you don't agree, perhaps you want to say you don't subscribe to this particular view of the Talmud, even though it's not presented in a controversial way. And it's, generally when there are controversies in the Talmud, that's when we take sides. When something is presented in a non-controversial way, it's generally accepted. Now you could say, well, it's a legendary source and not a halachic source. That's a matter of discussion. Even if it is a matter, legend isn't the right term, but it's the term that people will sometimes attribute. Still, something like this should turn off everybody. Any Jew who hears something like this should be shocked. I don't care if you're not religious at all. To hear the types of rhetoric and sheer insanity of Theodor Herzl, and still to consider him to be a hero, is downright disgusting and shocking, and really, I don't have any words to describe it. Now, we're talking about this case that happened. Again, so many fearmongers grabbed onto, look at how many people, all this anti-Semitism that's going on in America, it's time to leave and come to Israel. What kind of nonsense is that? Why would you leave a country where there are prank phone calls to go to a country where there are suicide bombings? Are you insane? Like, why? But people were talking like this. Even religious people I heard talking like this. I just can't imagine. But again, this is part of their plan. This is part of their ideology. So it's not a shock at all, because it really is in line with what they were doing. It's just that Israel got caught by the FBI, so now the Israeli police have to, cooperate with the FBI. Hopefully they'll extradite this boy to America where he can face charges, which I doubt they will. But they should, because he's really doing the job of Israel by doing things. This is what the Israelis want. This is their bread and butter. This is what brings more cannon fodder for their country that has been just embroiled in war and terrorism for over 60 years. And how many, 20,000 Jews have been killed because of this country, because of this movement from Herzl, and with all the wars and terrorism, everything that they've instigated. It's mind-blowing how anyone could support something like this. Israel has done great things. I'm not going to put down the good things that Israel's done. Israel has been great in technology and in science and all of these things, and that's wonderful, but you don't need a Jewish state, quote unquote, to have accomplishments in science and technology and all these things. You can be very in medicine, all the wonderful things that Israelis have done, they could do, first of all, living anywhere, the same people. There's nothing about Israel special that made this. And also, if it wasn't calling itself a Jewish state, if it was just a non-sectarian state like America, with freedom of religion, without official government religion like they have with the so-called chief rabbinate, which terrorizes Jewish communities around the world, prevents conversions in most of the world because of the iron fist that the so-called chief rabbinate has put, because they don't want there to be more Jews outside the Holy Land. That's also part of their ideology. They want to liquidate the Jewish communities outside of the Holy Land, and so that's why one of the many, many reasons why they discourage conversion. There are many other reasons. There's racism is involved and so forth, because they're not really true to the Torah. Because the Torah is not racist. The Torah says that anyone from any race can convert to Judaism, and certainly everyone agrees that if they're really sincere about their religion, they should be welcomed warmly. Now, there's some dispute about people who are maybe a little bit less sincere, and there are different sides to that question, but that's it. There's what to discuss there. Now, this really has to do with other cases that we see in other parts of the world. For example, especially in upstate New York, there is a big fight over the ultra-Orthodox communities that exist in upstate New York, and who is the ones who are always fighting the ultra-Orthodox communities? In Kiryas Joel, Bloomingburg, Monsey, they're always these self-hating Jews, these Herzl-type Jews, these Frankist-type Jews, these communist-type Jews, who are fighting against, because for the most part, like you talk to Gentiles who have lived in Monroe and don't have influence from the Jewish-run media, particularly, Republicans, people who voted for Trump and so forth, they're very welcoming communities, and also welcoming of the ideas of federalism and private property rights and freedom of religion, and they're not bothering them. They're living in peace. It's very rarely Gentiles who are fighting against the ultra-Orthodox communities like Kiryas Joel, Monsey, Bloomingburg, these places. It's always the hating Jews, the Frankist, Sabbatean, Zionist, nationalist, communist, socialist Jews who are fighting against, or people who are influenced by them, and it's really all connected, because also, but they try to inflate it. They try to, again, it's quite often those people who try to incite anti-Semitism and so forth for this express reason of, first of all, of scaring Jews away from America so they should move to Israel, and also the goal of all of that is that they should abandon the religion. That's the goal of the secular Israeli mindset, and that's the goal of these people, and really a lot of it with communism is against religion in general, which is a major reason why, and it's not all secular Jews. There are many very fine secular Jews. Even there are many fine Zionist Jews, especially religious Zionist Jews and so forth, and even some secular Zionist Jews who don't subscribe to these ideas. So I'm not painting with a broad brush here. But they should understand, though, the roots of this ideology. It's not rooted in Torah the way that many of the religious Zionists think, because the early Chovevei Tzion, who were opposed by most of the Gedolei Yisrael, still were not seeking to found a state. They were only seeking to build infrastructure, to build communities, but still to be humble under the non-Jewish rule. And that was what, Rav Kalisher and all of these, they all had this idea. Even Rabbi Kook really essentially wanted to live in peace with the Arabs. Rabbi Soloveitchik from Yeshiva University was very much, strong believer in being loyal Americans, and he didn't ascribe to a lot of the messianic fervor of the religious Zionist movement. People should be educated about what's really a lot of these things, but in any event, and it's okay to agree to disagree within Torah, that's acceptable, but there has to be recognition of what's really going on here, and this story that came out of Israel is not shocking at all, and has emboldened many people who frankly do espouse anti-Semitic ideology, and that's a crying shame. But that's really has been the goal of it. I mean, you can really look through history. I don't want to really bring all the examples. And again, this is not an anti-Israeli idea. There are many great Israeli people, and Israel has done great things. The idea, though, is that Israel should, ideally, my feeling is they should annex the land that they won in 1967 and forget about calling it a Jewish state. It can be one contiguous, non-sectarian state where all people of all different religions are equal citizens. There's no special rights just because you're Jewish. I mean, and everyone can live in peace like that. And then when Messiah comes. I mean, if you read like a sefer like the Chesed Lavram, who was a great Kabbalist from 400 years ago, he was the grandfather of the Chida. He said that when Mashiach comes, there's only going to be a few thousand Jews in Eretz Israel. So where are all these millions going to be when Mashiach comes? Let's hope wherever they go, it'll be in a peaceful way, and they're not putting themselves in danger by doing this. Satmarov used to cry when he learned that Chesed Lavram, when he saw all of these things that they're building for naught. And he wants to save their lives, and let's pray and hope that if that indeed is the case, because not everything that's in these Kabbalistic books are necessarily to be taken at face value, I can admit to that, but most likely it's a genuine prophecy with a genuine source, and most likely meant to be taken literally. So what's going to happen then? Where is the Jewish community going to go during this tribulation time? What's going to happen during the wars of Gog and Magog? Why are they putting themselves in this situation? It would be much better they sit and wait in America, because when Mashiach comes, it says that the whole Yerushalayim will be the size of Eretz Yisrael, and the whole Eretz Yisrael will be the size of the whole world, meaning the world will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the seas. And let's hope and look forward to that day, but look forward in a patient way. Not in a, people pointed out that this young man suffered from mental illness, and I work with the mentally ill community. I understand what that means, but in many ways, Israel has exacerbated problems of mental illness. Many people I talk to at work, they're obsessed with Israel and with this Jerusalem complex, Jerusalem syndrome, that people, they think that they're the Messiah or this or that. They think there's some biblical figure, and it's really has the existence of this has really been a very damaging thing to mental health of many people. That's another casualty of Israel that people forget. People talk about, but they don't realize the cause and effect there. So, again, this is not to be negative against a non-sectarian democratic state of Israel. I mentioned, in the video that probably got one of the most views of any of my videos was my video about, John Kerry, his speech in Israel. And he said Israel cannot be both. If you have a one-state solution, people misquote him, if you have a one-state solution, Israel cannot be both democratic and Jewish. And so he was pushing for that, a two-state solution, so the part of Israel that's left should stay democratic and Jewish. My view is, forget about Jewish, it could be a binational democratic state, and that's really what we should have. Because for sure the leaders of the Palestinians, I'm not talking about the average Palestinian person, but the leaders of the Palestinians have not proven themselves to be good peace partners, have not proven themselves worthy to have their own state, and they've really victimized their own people horribly because of their goals. And really, this should be the way that it should be fixed. Should be, if Israel would annex that land make a path to citizenship for the Palestinian people to become Israeli citizens, ensure that they're not going to engage in any criminal terrorist activities. Why shouldn't they be able to live together in peace? Weed out the bad ones, which are very few. They're a very small minority, even though a lot of the kids have been brought up by these people, and that's part of the problem. But not all of them. It's not universal. Even though there is a problem with that, it's not universal. There should be no reason why we shouldn't be able to live in peace. In fact, probably a lot of the Palestinians really are Jewish, because there was a lot, especially after 1929, the pogroms, there were a lot of Jews who converted to Islam. And a great deal of the Palestinian people, I mean, that's a new idea, even a lot of the Jordanians, a lot of people who you might think are Arabs in these countries are actually Jewish, or have Jewish ancestry. And they should really be welcomed back into the Jewish community if they're interested in that. But that shouldn't have anything to do with the government. If people want that on their own, it would really solve all the problems. I mean, like my friend Reb Asher Mays always says, the biggest solution to all the terrorism would be if all these terrorists abandon terrorism and convert to Judaism. I'm not saying that they have to, certainly, if they're not Jewish, but they should be welcome to do so if they're really sincere. I don't see any reason why not. And that would solve a lot of problems, Well, again, I'm all for religious freedom. I definitely don't think the government should be involved in anything like that. But if independent ministries want to be, non-government organizations, private synagogues or congregations want to engage in something like that, I don't see any problem with it. And people then say, oh, maybe they're terrorists trying to sneak in. That's generally not true. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people like this, and it's really not the case. Well, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I hope this was interesting. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset by this. I'd love to hear rebuttals, comments. I'd love to communicate with you. And again, if you're offended by anything I say, I want to apologize. But there are many different views in the world, and we can share. And I'm sure almost everyone who's watching this is going to disagree with me on something that I said, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm not looking to impose my views. I'm just looking to share the ideas that I have with you all. And thank you for watching. God bless.